It's currently, looks like about 6:46. Apologize for being late. We need to start the meeting. So as authorized by section 551.071 Texas Government Code, the meeting may be convened to a closed executive session for the purpose of seeking confidential legal advice from the attorney. We're not doing that this evening. The Rolette City Board of Adjustments reserves the right to reconvene after that meeting, if we did, regular session or call an executive session in the business required adjournment. Something a little bit this evening, we only have 4 of our members here this evening, and for the applicants, it does require a supermajority of affirmative vote of all 4 here on the board tonight to approve your request. So it is at your discretion if you wish to continue on this evening, or if you want us to do it at a future date when we have a better turnout of our board members. So this is a choice of yours. So we want to give you the opportunity to make a choice. Anyone, y'all wish to go forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I see all 3 applicants wish to go forward. Okay, for the record then. Okay. So, I guess I'm making sure we call the meeting in session. At this point, we have a citizens input is available to provide comment for the meeting. If you're not attending in person, you can send email to citizensinput@rollout.com by 3:30 on the day of the meeting. Specifically state whether the comment is to be regarding, and it was recommended if you want it read into the agenda or you just want the opinion made into the record. If anybody wants to speak to the board, you have 3 minutes and you're welcome to speak to us at this time. Do you wish to speak on citizens input? That's the only wishing to speak on citizens input. Okay. All right. Number 4 is to consider the minutes for the Board of Adjustment meeting for January the 12th, 2022. Do I have any motion for anybody to approve?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second? Motion for. Sorry. Jim, Mr. Mosley, and I get Chris. Chris? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we vote.
Yes.
It's not showing.
Do I hand wish or? No, they got buttons on my hand. Let's do a hand vote in favor of the. So we have unanimous, so that passes approval. Item 5 is consider approving the minutes. Use the next round then. Let's move on to 5. Consider the approval of minutes, joint working session for the City Council on January 19th of 2022. Do I have any motions?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, with Chris, second.
Yes.
Okay, let's vote for that approval.
You're using it. It's not showing up again.
Okay, let's waste time. Let's by show of hands to approve. We have all unanimous. Okay. Okay, so our action items this evening, number 6A, conduct a public hearing, take action and request from James and Rhonda Wolf, excuse me, I'm pronouncing the name wrong, I'm bad on that, for variance to section 77-400 of the Rollout Development Code to increase lot coverage, recommendation of 45% to 50.4 single family SF10 district. We have a presentation from the city. Welcome.
Thanks, sir. Per section 77-400 of the Rowlett Development Code, the maximum lot coverage for the SF10 district, of which this property is located within, and illustrated there on the right-hand side, is 45%. Lot coverage is generally a measurement of the percentage of the lot that is covered by impervious surfaces, such as structures and concrete. So the owners of this property are seeking to make some additions to the garage and the living area of the home, which would end up having a net increase in the lot coverage, which would go beyond that 45%. The variance would be to increase that maximum lot coverage to 50.4%. So one of the primary intentions with lot coverage is to ensure sufficient pervious area to allow for stormwater to be absorbed by the ground to minimize the risk of flood. This property was developed prior to the adoption of the current version of the Rowlett Development Code, and it has a lot coverage that was calculated by the applicants at being 46.8%, give or take. We'll also note, going back one slide here, that this property is adjacent to take area of Lake Ray Hubbard, and I will also use this function here, which show that that is this here as well. And that take area is leasable and it is leased by the property owners. It is undeveloped, has approximately 12,097 square feet that is pervious. The overall modifications to the property, which would include changes to the living area, to the garage, as well as to sidewalks, driveway areas, paved areas, would have a net increase of impervious coverage or lot coverage of 356 square feet. We remind the board that section 211.0983 of the Texas Local Government Code does state that the Board of Adjustment, when deliberating any variance request, should determine whether it is contrary to the public interest, due to special conditions, that the literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship, so that the spirit of the ordinance is observed and substantial justice is done. Also, our own development code further explains that it's intended to provide limited relief to the requirements of the code, where the strict application would create unnecessary hardship, prohibiting use of land in a manner otherwise allowed by the development code. Not intended that variances would be granted merely to remove inconveniences, but it is intended to provide relief where the requirements render land difficult or impossible to use because of unique physical attributes or other factor unique to the property for which the variance is requested. The variance is permanent in nature and would run with the land or the use associated with this variance. In regard to notifications that were sent out regarding this request, this was done back on April 22nd. There were 13 notifications sent out in a 200-foot notice buffer. 4 responses received in favor, and then within the 500-foot buffer, there were 2 notices received back in favor of the 34, which were sent out. As well as there's one that was just, thank you, Chairman. There's one that was just added that we received since the packet was published, and which we have brought forward to the commission, to the board for their information. That is also another in favor. It was included in those numbers that I just stated. Staff's recommendation is approval of this variance. The take area to the rear would provide an additional pervious land to receive stormwater, minimizing the flood risk. Approval would allow for property owners to make reasonable improvements to the home for their enjoyment without contravening the spirit of the development code and the rationale for the lot coverage requirements. Again, as has been stated, but to remind everyone, an affirmative vote of 75% of the Board of Adjustment must be decided in favor of an applicant to grant that variance, which would mean the 4 members of the board this evening present would need to vote in favor of this request. With that, I would entertain questions. The applicants are also here to address any questions that you may have then.
Chris, you have a question?
I do not.
Mr. Mosley? Does the applicant wish to speak?
Yes.
Sure. At least introduce ourselves. I'm Rhonda Wolf.
I'm Jim. I'm not.
So we would like to appreciate you guys' approval of our request. We've looked for lake property for a long time and enjoyed being in Rowlett and gotten involved and want to be around and want to increase our homes so we can increase our family enjoyment here. So a couple of things, I think we did have another person, our neighbor give us another one of their forms that didn't get in to the actually we had two of them. One of them maybe one maybe not.
Maybe the same.
Which did, so there's two more they gave us, which indicated there was no effect to their property. They weren't worried about it. That's our direct neighbor. And also that since we have no backyard, driveway in the backyard, we have no way to pull our boats or stuff and keep them off of the front. And then our HOA doesn't allow us to keep them in the front. So just wanted to add that piece as well.
We've been doing this for a while, and it just seems like the process is pretty long. I'm not really upset with anybody in particular. I do want to say that for every month it takes us to do this, we're spending $800 in storage, $700. We bought this lake property because we're both people who are like, we've got an antique boat that we have, and I've got a boat. Only got one slip, so one's got to be in the garage. So this is really going to be a big asset, and the way we're increasing the size of the garage is just really going where there's currently driveway. So it's a J entry, and instead of it being 20 by 20, it's going to remain 20, but it's going to grow to 40. So it'll still be a J entry. We're just moving the driveway down, hooking in later.
In addition, 350 concrete is going to be in the rear, where we have all the drainage. It goes from like 450 to 36 from our property line down to the lake. So I think that's the key, was the drainage issue, was why there was a 45%. And so I don't see that there's a problem with that. We hope you don't either.
So
So leave it.
all that being said, we were just told Monday that our son is now having a pair of twins. They're going from a family of 3 to a family of 5 kids. So good news every square.
Any questions from members of any questions from the members of the board after the presentation? Questions? All right, any other comments from anyone in the audience? If not, ask my fellow board members. Okay. I need to open the public hearing for anyone else in the audience to make comment about this topic. Seeing no one requesting a comment, I can close the public hearing now. Thank you, Chris. Anyone on the board wish to make comment or ready for a motion?
Let me make a motion.
Mr. Mosley?
Make a motion to approve the variance as requested by the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley. And a second?
I'll second.
Here. Okay, Chris is trying to hit the button. This is a big new world. Okay, so we have a second. We need to go ahead and vote. Technology, don't we love it? Okay, show of hands. Vote for the affirmative to pass. 1, Say we approve. Congratulations, enjoy your new additions.
Thank you, and we're grateful.
Okay. All right, next item is item 6B. Have a presentation from the city. Thank you.
Yes, so the item here is to conduct a public hearing and take action in order to amend the street frontage requirements at the property located at 9405 Del Rock Road, which is approximately 600 feet of the intersection of Del Rock Road and Newbury Lane. That location is shown on the map to the right, and this may seem familiar to you as in the last meeting we actually had the adjoining property essentially come forward with the same request. They're both triangular pieces that are landlocked. They don't have direct access to Del Rock Road, but they do have access through a 30-foot access easement, egress easement that allows them access into the property. That said, the property is not currently platted. In order to be so, it needs to meet the requirements of the zoning district, which requires at minimum a 35-foot frontage requirement. By that, there needs to be either directly adjoining a street for at least 35 feet, or it needs to have access to 35 feet worth of an access easement. They only currently have access to 30 feet, which is why the request has come forward. The yellow portion there on the right shows the location of that easement that would serve this property as well as technically 3 other properties, but it would be a total of 3 landlocked parcels. The subject property is within the SF8 zoning district, which has minimum lot area of 8,000 square feet. This lot does meet that requirement, being approximately 2.47 acres of land. As I stated, there is an existing ingress and egress easement off of Del Rock, but it is 30 feet wide, which is slightly short of the minimum requirement. The length of this easement is 388.7 feet, and it is currently unimproved. Section 77 of the Raleigh zoning code does require dwellings to have that 35-foot adjacency. The request is to reduce from 35 feet to 30 feet. And it is the Board of Adjustments prerogative to approve it if they so see that it would be beneficial, or at least it would help provide justice to this land. And so I won't go into the paragraph that Alex read earlier, but essentially if there is a physical hardship, then you're able to consider a variance to that effect. And so a variance is appropriate under these circumstances, and again, you're allowed to consider things like setbacks, lot width, lot depth, lot coverage, floor area ratio, sidewalks, home size, lot size, signs, as long as it is not being granted contrary to public interest. There is, again, that recorded 30-foot access easement that does allow access into the property. Just additional conditions that I stated that January 12th did approve that same request for the adjoining property. Legal property boundaries were established prior to the adoption of the Raleigh Development Code in 2006. And as a reminder, we need at least 4 members in order to be able to approve this request. Notices were sent at 200, 500 per radius with no responses in opposition or in favor. Our recommendation is, sorry for that slide, our recommendation is for approval of the request. And so, as stated, to allow the 35-foot reduction to 30 feet in the existing easement. The applicant is here, but I'm also available to answer any questions.
Have any questions from the board?
Did you say we already approved that easement before?
The easement itself is not
January?
consideration, but access from that easement, or rather, the property next door was allowed to use that easement as access.
Okay. Well, that's what you said. Yeah, so it wasn't January.
Yeah.
Right, that's.
So why was it denied to the neighbor?
Say again?
Because the access to the neighbor is not allowed.
It was approved.
With the circumstances?
It was approved under the circumstances that it was the only access to the property. It is an established condition. And it is recorded as access to that property. Some of the observations that we made in the previous meeting, and there will be applicable here as well, obviously, there will be improvements to that easement.
I don't know if that's really relevant to this particular request. I mean, this easement is being used by another parcel, which was approved back in January, and I think that's what we need to do at this point.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from members of the board? Okay. The applicant is here. Do they wish to make comment?
No, sir.
Okay, all three of you, no comment? All right. I think we have what we need, so we need to open the public hearing. So the opening the public hearing for item 6B, it's now about 6 after 7. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on behalf of this request? I see no one present wishing to speak on it, so I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing. At this point, I look for board members if they have a recommendation.
Make a motion that we approve the variance as requested.
Thank you, Chris.
Take a second.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley. At this point, we can try to give it a chance to vote again. Give the butts a chance again. There we go. Okay, we have all 4 affirmatives, and we have the supermajority needed. Congratulations, enjoy your access there. All right. Next is item 6C. Again, a review for a public meeting, next, a presentation to the city.
Yes, so we're here to consider a variance to section 77-400, which requires a 20-foot setback for the subject property, which is located at 6205 Iris Drive. The location is shown on the right, and it is about 100 feet just north of, I forgot the street, the cross street there, but it's on Iris Drive. Say again? Beach. And it does back onto Rowlett Road, just north of our offices actually. And so section 77-400 does have the setback requirements, which for this property being zone SF9 is set at the lesser of 20 feet or 20% of the lot depth, which in this case, that lesser number would be 20 feet. The owners of this property are seeking to make an addition to the rear of the structure that would be 15 feet from the rear of the property line. A little bit of background, or a little bit of context rather. In July 2021, there was a car crash that did take out a portion of the fence on the rear, but also had severe damage to a shed that is in the location of where they're currently the applicant submitted a building permit for a 279 square foot addition to replace that detached accessory structure as it had been destroyed, and the cost to replace it was more than 50%. And so the shed has been situated within a 15-foot utility easement. And so due to the fact that it was more than 50% damaged, the conformity of that shed was no longer essentially. In order to replace or build something on it, it would have to meet the conditions of the existing zoning. That said, the applicant is not seeking today to replace that shed, but rather instead seeking the opportunity to extend their home to the rear of the lot and reduce that setback from 20 feet to 15 feet. You can see the location of, on the left side, the location of that shed, sharing, essentially splitting the 15-foot easement, which you can see that line there is that 15-foot easement along the rear of the property. And this would be the shed that was previously there. On the right side, you'll see they are looking to extend their home, but not to go into that easement. And so they're staying clear of that existing easement. Also important to note, it is a one-story structure, and so impact from the street or visibility would be actually less or similar to the shed that was existing. We read the purpose of this variance process today, and it is your prerogative to approve it if you see that sufficient or justice would be done to the land. Notices were sent out, and there was one opposition that was included in the new packet. Staff recommendation is for approval of this request to reduce the rear setback from 20 feet to 15 feet. The proposed addition, although requiring a variance, would be an improvement upon the previous condition with an accessory structure encroaching into the 15-foot utility easement area. Just a reminder again, it would take 4 members, or at least a majority vote today, and a majority vote, a unanimous vote today, in order to approve this variance. The applicant is here to answer any questions, as I am.
Have any questions from board members?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask staff if in the future, I brought this up somewhere along the line, when you have people when you show the map of the comments of the neighbors, the 200 and 500 feet, I would sure appreciate as a board member if those were highlighted so we would know who is, if it's a next door neighbor that's complaining or somebody that lives 8 houses away that's complaining. Or on the other side, or approved it. But, it's, as a board of adjustment, it's one of the things we have to consider is the immediate neighbors of whoever is doing it. So I think on this case, it's not that big a deal, but in the future, if we could make sure to indicate to the board on that one drawing where it shows the circles, who is requesting it be approved or disapproved, at least so we get an idea relative to the subject property. But that was all I had as far as.
That's noted.
Thank you.
If I remember correctly, the disapproval was not close adjacent to the house, it was only a bit of a distance for the call. I think we have what we need. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the applicant, do you wish to speak?
Only if you have questions about what we're trying to do or concerns about the neighbor that you'd like me to address.
You need to come up with the diagram.
Yes, if you,
Introduce yourself.
thank you, sir.
My name is Michael Vieira. It's my home. So
concerns about the person that complained or have questions about what we're trying to do?
I didn't have any questions on this particular one. It's just, I wanted to make sure that in the future when we get these, that we know what it is. And, you know, I'll wait until we confirm, but I don't have any particular questions for you. But thank you, sir. I appreciate
I
it.
just want to make sure all of your,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
At this point, we need to open the public hearing for any comments from people in the audience on this topic. Seeing no one in the audience requesting to speak, we can go ahead and close the public hearing on this topic. Any questions from the Board of Adjustments members? If not, I'll open for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the variance as requested by the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley. There's a second.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. I guess it's time for a vote. I'll take. Yes, technology finally. That came in the affirmative also. Congratulations. Yeah. And at this point in time, I think the Board of Adjustments can close our meeting this evening at 7:15. Welcome and thank you all for attending tonight. That's the end.